Welcome to Paper Quest.
I'm Jessie.
And I'm James.
And we're two friends teaming up in our ongoing quest through the Infinite Library.
During a main quest, we discuss our current buddy book, and during a side quest, we share our recent solo reads with each other.
You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Please rate, like, or subscribe wherever you're listening, and check out the show notes for all the links in the description.
Check the Facebook page for our upcoming release schedule, and consider supporting the show with our $1 Patreon, which also grants access to each episode 2 days early. But for now, please join us in another episode.
This is Paper Quest.
Okay, so today we're going to do things a little bit differently. We did our buddy read, and we're going to do our main quest and the side quest at the same time today. For reasons. We had very different views on our main quest book, so we're going to put that at the beginning here, and then move on to our side quest books. So we did The Ballad of Perilous Graves by Alex Jennings. I will start with the summary. And this, I went ahead and just grabbed the same summary from last episode. So Nola is a city full of wonders, a place of sky trolleys and dead cabs, where haints dance the night away, and wise women help keep the order. To those from away, Nola might seem strange. To Perilous Graves, it is simply home. In a world of everyday miracles, Perry might not have a talent for magic, but he does know Nola's rhythm as intimately as his own heartbeat. So when the city's great magician starts appearing in odd places, and essential songs are forgotten, Perry realizes trouble is afoot. 9 songs of power have escaped from the piano that maintains the city's beat, and without them, Nola will fail. Unwilling to watch his home be destroyed, Perry will sacrifice everything to save it, but a storm is brewing, and the haint of all haints is awake. Nola's time might be coming to an end. So, I picked this book for us to read. I was extremely excited. I will say there were a few points in the end that I was less happy with, but I overall gave it 4 stars, and you did not like this book at all, so I wanted to hear from you.
So, yeah, I did not finish this book. I made it about 150 pages in out of 450. I liked the idea. I liked the idea of finding the songs. I liked that there was music in the audiobook partway when I was having trouble reading it and getting into it. I switched to audio for a little bit to try it that way. It just didn't work for me. I didn't feel invested in any of the characters. And really the only character that I was like, oh, I'm excited that they exist is Peaches. And yeah, I don't even know what was going on with Casey and JL. I don't care about them. Every time they were like popping in, I was like, why do we have a chapter about them? I'm sure there's a reason. I just didn't get to it. But yeah, it was one of those things where like it should have worked for me. And there was something that wasn't, I don't know if it was, we talk a lot about pace, or I just don't think I connected to the characters. And for me, that's really important.
Yeah, I wanted, the way they do the description for this book on the cover or the back or whatever makes it seem like it's going to be a lot more fantastical of a setting than it is. This ends up being like regular New Orleans with like regular, real life stores and real life, whatever. And then there just happens to be this slight fantasy setting of this is a place where ghosts are normal and zombies are normal, and there's an alive side of town and a dead side of town, and there's like the what do they call them, the floating or flying cabs or whatever. So like there's like they're used to like, yeah, things are a little different here, but overall the world is pretty much what you'd expect. I wanted like a really hardcore New Orleans fantasy setting, but that's okay. I assumed based on the description we'd have more of like that kind of thing going on. It seemed like a much more of an epic quest sort of deal with like, having to find the 9 notes of power, which all take on like this, humanoid appearance, like they all come off of as ghosts of some sort. They're all haints basically, which is ghosts, spirits.
Ghosts. Yeah.
I I liked a lot of this. I liked the way that it read. I mean, I gave this book 4 stars. I enjoyed it. I just wanted a little bit more, something a little bit different, I guess. But yeah, there were some weird things that I was like, maybe I'm just stupid and not getting it, or maybe it's just not described well enough. So you were talking about Casey, and he when they're tagging like walls and stuff like that, when he does his tags, they are like 3D, like they float wherever he tags things. And I will say, unless I missed something, I still don't get what that was about and why that was super important. This book, the further you get into it, does go into a little bit crazier of like ideas and settings. Like they do touch upon the multiverse, and they hint at like, because one of my questions was, okay, New Orleans is this way. Like there's this magic about New Orleans. So what if somebody not from New Orleans came to town, right? Like would they see all these crazy things? And they hinted that, I forget if it was our version, like our universe, or a different one. Mm-hmm. But they hinted that New Orleans might kind of be existing on its own, which was interesting. And then we learn that so obviously New Orleans is known for a few really bad hurricanes in its past. And we learn one of the biggest deals as the book keeps going is that in the same way that the music notes can be alive, there is this hurricane that's like a living hurricane. And the big deal is that all of the past hurricanes that New Orleans has suffered is coming together in one massive, really bad hurricane. And it's a living hurricane, so that's kind of what they're trying to stop as well. That's the whole point of trying to get the 9 musical notes back to where they belong. But I just feel like the only reason I can't give it 5 stars is like certain things were just like, well, this is just the way it is. There's not like a super explanation, but you know, they have to do it. And if they get the notes back, like I felt like it was very non-specific. Like, oh yeah, these notes of power escaped. Oh yeah, this living hurricane. Like everything's just like, it is the way it is because it is. Like, you know, I always hate that in books. Or, not always hate, but I don't love it. Like, I want more of an explanation. But I truly loved it. I love the New Orleans vibe. I also had the book and the audio like you. Mostly did the audio. So, I loved the music. I loved the author I loved the
narrator.
The narrator for the audiobook. He did a great job. I loved pretty much all the characters. I like how magic was... It's not like a very detailed magic system, you know? It's like, there's magic for the sake of magic, and here's the magic bag, and when you say clickety-clack it in my sack, it just works because it does. That's all fine. It doesn't bother me. This isn't like... You know, this is a light magic system because, you know, it's Earth, and it's New Orleans, and it's like, yeah, there's a little bit of magic in this town. That's cool. The author went into like really interesting topics that he had to just kind of like, because this is one book. This is not some epic series where they have to get all nine notes. They have across like a number of books. That has to all happen in this book. So it's like boom, 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 really fast. So I kind of wanted it to slow down because by the time they start the journey, it's like, okay, well, they have to do this really fast now.
See, I think for me, I wanted their journey to start much sooner because at 150 pages, I was starting the journey. Like we hadn't found a single, or they had been told what the quest was, and they had basically like just started and learned that they were magic and learned about their background and history, and like they hadn't done anything yet. And I'm like, I'm a third of the way through the book and nothing's happened. I needed that like front part to be condensed, and I think maybe once I got into the actual quest part, I would have really enjoyed it. And I might still read it. I still have it, obviously. But that is, I can't. I need to love the characters, at least one, and the only one that interested me was Peaches, like I said.
Yeah, Peach is a great character, and she kind of has development later on down the line too, because we learned that she might also have been created. There's like a whole storyline going on there too. Like she always talks about her dad and stuff, but it turns out
Yeah.
that's probably not all exactly the way she thought it was. So that's an interesting little side thing going on. And then Perry doesn't think he's like super magical. He learns that he can use magic to some degree, but then as the book goes on, it turns out he can get pretty powerful, and he saves the day. Go figure. So, once the quest is over, he is mailed like a fancy acceptance letter to a school for magic. And, but I forget who says it, but someone tells him, just because you get a fancy letter from magic school doesn't mean you have to accept it. And, how...
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. We've all seen Harry Potter. You have to go.
But then he's asked, how do you feel about returning to normal life after everything you've seen and done and know that exists? Like, you know about the multiverse now, and you've traveled to different planes. Maybe I shouldn't call them planes, but he's traveled like outside of the normal realm and stuff. He does all these things by the end of the book. Can you just go back to normal life? Do you accept the fancy magical invitation? And we don't know what he ends up doing, and I don't know if there's a plan for a second book. I would guess no. This doesn't seem like the kind of book that's asking for a sequel. I think it was just left off that way. In all honesty...
Well, he's like...
yeah.
He's a child, right? Like, he's...
Yes.
So, I mean, yeah, he doesn't have to... The same way you don't have to decide what you're going to be when you grow up. Now, in real life.
Yeah.
You don't have to,
But yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I will say I was going back and forth between 3 and 4 stars. I gave it 4, and then I let it sit, and I gave it 3, and I was like, no, I'm gonna bump
I saw
back
that
up to a 4. So I was trying to decide before we recorded this, but I went with 4. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was skipping through the physical copy again, just looking at certain passages and stuff, and I was like, no, you know what? I really did enjoy my time with this, like, especially when I was in the middle of reading and or listening to it. Like, it held my attention. I was excited to see what happened next, but I was like you, where it's like, yeah, this journey takes a while to start, and now they have just the rest of this book to, I guess, do 9 musical notes all at once. Like, I was like, are they gonna cliffhanger it? Am I unaware of a second book that's coming? But no, they finished the whole thing in a single novel.
Well, I want to like it more. I just don't. And I'm glad you liked it. Like I said, I think if that front kind of what's happening introduction section was smaller and condensed, I would have been more intrigued. And once we're in the journey, I'm like, all right, where are we going? What are we doing? But
yeah,
we didn't get there fast enough.
One thing I would love, and I have no idea if this is in future plans, if there was an adaptation of this book, TV show or otherwise, I would hope a TV show. I'd be entirely down for that. I'd love to see some of these concepts come to life. I love the way that some of these are described. You can imagine it'd be a very colorful adaptation. I want to see, what is it, Dr. Professor, the guy with the piano, the Haint with the piano? Yeah, I just want to see all these characters come to life, because it would look so cool.
Well, even just like Peaches, her magic is like, at least from the sections that are the first bit that I read, is very natural to her. Like, she can just pick up a car.
Yes.
But she's a little girl. Like, the dad in it says, yeah, she's extraordinary, but she's still a little girl. Mm-hmm. And they have this whole conversation. She like throws Perry and Brandy like over a wall in the beginning. And she talks about, just make sure you fall right, like stop yourself and slow down your fall. And I feel like that could just be so fun. Like, I don't know, seeing them like like they've literally been flung by this tiny girl over a wall into a cemetery, being like, oh no, I have to like slow down my fall. And I don't know, that's a fun, like magic-y thing that all of those little things, like, I thought would be really cool, because it's just seamless in what they're doing. Like you said, it's not like crazy overt magic. There's no wand or anything. It's just like, oh yeah, here's a little natural magic.
Yeah, it relies on some light magic, and then the rest is very much like physical presence. Like there's a dead side of town, so you'll see zombies driving cabs and ghosts who just appear randomly to play music, and people know where the ghost spots are. Like, oh, why is he playing over there tonight? Like, he's not usually around this area, and it's just totally normal. But yeah, so
Yeah.
that's the Ballad of Perilous Graves. Our next buddy book. So over the course of the next two main quest episodes, we're doing our second buddy book swap. So these are books that we've already read and are swapping with each other. So you're going to read one that I've already read as a past favorite of mine, and vice versa. Yours is going to be first. We have switched book 1 by Amanda Hocking.
Yep.
Synopsis. I mean, you've already read this book, but this is new to me. I copy and pasted it just a little bit ago. When Wendy Everly was 6 years old, her mother was convinced she was a monster and tried to kill her. It isn't until 11 years later that Wendy discovers her mother might have been right. With the help of Finn Holmes, Wendy finds herself in a world she never knew existed. A world both beautiful and frightening, and Wendy is not sure she wants to be a part of it.
Yep. So I actually read like half of it last night because I was very excited about it. And obviously we'll talk more in depth about it. But this was probably one of the first, if not the first, fantasy books I ever read.
Okay, so this book goes back a while.
Yeah, so it's from 2012 originally, I think, maybe 2010. And I didn't grow up reading Harry Potter. I read a lot of like real stuff. And yeah, I read this, I guess, in college, like not for college, just in college.
Okay.
And had never read anything like it. I had never read any werewolf books. I had never read any shifter things, nothing like that. No vampire books at that point. And so I think it has this kind of nostalgia for me.
Okay. Well, yeah. It's a very general description, so I can't make out much from that blurb there. So we will see how it goes. That'll be the next thing that I read, of course. So I will be letting you know.
Yeah, I am very excited, as you can tell.
So now we will switch to our solo reads. And you said that you had 3 books, correct?
I do, but 2 go together.
Okay. Sounds good. So I will go ahead and start. I just want to get one out of the way, and I just remember that this is a book that I did not finish. So, this is also a book that you've read. It's called The Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo.
Yeah.
I'm just going to read an edited version of the description of the book. Alex, her name is Galaxy, short for Alex, short for Galaxy. Alex Stern is a member of Yale's freshman class. She is the sole survivor of a horrific, unsolved multiple homicide. But at her hospital bed, Alex is offered a second chance to attend one of the world's most prestigious universities on a full ride. What's the catch, and why her? Still searching for answers, Alex arrives in New Haven, tasked by her mysterious benefactors with monitoring the activities of Yale's secret societies. Their 8 windowless tombs are the well-known haunts of the rich and powerful, from high-ranking politicos, but their occult activities are more sinister and more extraordinary than any paranoid imagination might conceive. They tamper with forbidden magic, they raise the dead, and sometimes they prey on the living. So, I got halfway through this book. I can tell it's a well-written book. I have nothing wrong with how it's written or any of that stuff. I just did not get or like feel the story. I was like, I'm quite literally halfway through, and I ain't just reading nothing. Like, to me, I was just like, okay, this book is just going and it's talking and I'm getting nothing out of it. There's some cool ideas. I mean, first of all, I'm always down for a secret society kind of, novel deal. Like, that's all fun to me. I've read many things like that. And in fact, my second book I talk about is the same stuff, and it's significantly better, but I'll get to that. it's a cool premise. Alex, like there are people that can see ghosts, right? And they call them the Greys because they are literally gray ghosts. Certain people can see them. Alex is special because she sees them in color, which pisses one of her colleagues off because he wants to be as good as she is when it comes to the Greys, but she can see them in color, and for some reason can physically interact with them. But the way the book goes, I don't know. It's weird. We just jump from scene to scene, and I feel like there's no progress or point. I don't know how to put it. At one point, I was reading a scene where she was younger, and she was in a bathroom, and she was on her period or something, and the first time I think she learned that she could interact with ghosts is when one tried to rape her, and I was like,
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
I just like, I don't really, I have no problem with that scene, but I just don't need to read a book where a ghost is trying to rape a girl. I'm like, I don't know. I don't have problem with scenes like that in books, but this is just to the point of ridiculous where I just don't know if I'm going to finish this.
Yeah. I remember, I had to look it up, but I remember it was okay for me, that same book. It wasn't anything amazing.
Yeah. And I didn't know this until I started writing my notes, and I decided not to finish reading it. This is the same author who writes... So this is the author's adult debut novel. I don't know when this was published. I didn't look that up, but this is the adult debut
It's
novel.
recently.
Okay.
Recently, yeah.
This is the author who writes the teen series Shadow and Bone and Six of Crows.
Oh, yeah.
I that's what, when I was Googling it, that's what it said, and I was like, oh, those are like I know that I used to work in a bookstore, but even if I hadn't worked in a bookstore, those are titles I know. Like, those are really big titles that are like highly rated and loved. So I don't know, maybe I should read the teen stuff. I might like that more, but I don't know. I will
Yeah, I will say I tried Six of Crows, and I was listening to it, and it wasn't doing it for me, and I was like, well, maybe I need to read it. So I might just not love her work. I don't know.
That's what I'm thinking. It might not be for me, which is totally okay. Because like I said, I can tell Leigh. I can tell she's very good at writing novels. You know, I didn't have a problem with any of the actual book itself. It's just the story that was not captivating me.
Right.
But how about you?
So when I was in a funk trying to read Perilous Graves, and I was like, let me just look on Kindle Unlimited, see if I can find something that like I know I'm going to enjoy to get back in it. And so I found these books. They were also on my Goodreads like wanna read list, but they are adult romance books called Bad Habit. It's like the Bad Habit series, Bad Habit and Bad Intentions, and they're by Charleigh Rose. Which isn't that one of your brother's dog's name?
Yeah, we have a dog named Charleigh Rose.
Yeah, I wrote it down and I was like, why do I know that name? So it's 3 interconnected books, but they're 3 different couples that they're focusing on. The first story focuses on Briar and Asher. Briar is the little sister of Asher's best friend. Asher is the moody, angry older guy with a heart of gold. She came from a perfect white picket fence kind of family, and Asher's dad regularly got trashed and beat the crap out of a teenage Asher. As Briar got older, she began stealing innocent moments with Asher, a touch of hands or an extra long shared look. It was innocent until it wasn't, and Asher told her they could never be. She was too good, and he was too rotten. A few days later, Asher was gone, left without even saying goodbye. Briar was crushed, and Asher was betrayed. So that's my synopsis. There's probably like a better one in Amazon. But basically, 3 years later, Asher returns. Briar's now 17, and their attraction is immediate and undeniable. And they have a second chance to get out, if they can get out of their own way and find each other again. It is definitely rated mature, but it's quick and fast-paced. They're both angry with each other. and with themselves. And I would say I tried to look up a list of like romance tropes, but they're like a million. So I would say this is definitely friends to enemies to lovers, forbidden love, best friend sister, second chance, and sunny grumpy trope.
Okay.
So you have like Briar, who's very happy and, long blonde hair and like cheerleader type of personality, bubbly. And then Asher is angry and troubled. And yeah, it was not a long book. It was a quick and easy read. I gave it a 4 out of 5. And then I jumped right into the second one, and it focuses on the person or one of the people Asher was with during his 3 missing years, and that is someone named Dare. That is not his real name.
I was just going to ask. That's not the greatest name.
No, I think his real name was something dorky. I don't think it was Daryl, but it was something like that. And they shortened it to Dare because that was more intimidating. So I gave these both 4 out of 5. Because they go together, I'll just give a quick synopsis on the second book too, which was that Lo, which is short for Logan, but she's a girl. Lo has been raising her teenage brother Jess for years. They've been living with their mother as she struggled with addiction. They didn't always have a heated house or food or electricity, but they had each other. When their mother is taken to prison after an altercation, Lo does the only thing she can think of. She calls their father, who left them years ago. He is sober and living in River's Edge as a car mechanic. They only need a place to crash for a while until they can save up enough money to get their own spot and her brother graduates high school. After arriving in town, Lo goes to every single business looking for literally any job. But in a place as small as River's Edge, there aren't too many places to try. And that's how Lo meets Dare, the extremely private, antisocial tattoo shop owner who is as guarded as he is intimidating. When he meets Lo, he knows it'll never work. He doesn't do relationships. When she gets a job next door, they begin to see more and more of each other and find themselves unable to keep apart. Again, super mature, grumpy sunshine, abusive ex, broken families, forced proximity, and a little bit of damsel in distress. And the final book I started, and we've jumped a few years, but it focuses on that teenage brother and someone. I don't even remember her name. I literally am like 5 pages in. But they're fun, lighthearted romances. Like you go into it knowing that they're going to be together. So, you already know the outcome. I did originally want to give them 5 stars, but I know I won't read them again. And that is basically the only time I give 5 stars, unless it's really, really amazing. But they're quick, easy, free if you have Kindle Unlimited, and highly recommend if that's something you want to read and want to get out of a funk.
Yeah, I think a lot of our, or at least the next few novels that we're going to read, I think they're main quests that we're reading, but are also pretty short, so they should be really quick, fun reads, and we'll have more time for our side quests too, I think. I actually don't know how big yours is, but my pick is a kid's book.
It's short.
It's short, okay. My pick is a kid's book, and you're going to blow literally right through it, so yeah. All right, well, that sounds good. So I have one more, but I could not be happier to have read this book.
Oh, good, because my next one's a not good book.
Okay, I'm going to rearrange for a second. Oh. All right, so are you familiar with Erin Morgenstern? She wrote The Night Circus.
Yeah.
Have you read The Night Circus?
Yeah.
Okay. I read The Night Circus way back when, years ago now. It's an older book. It sounds so bad to call it older. It's not. But anyways, The Night Circus, I read it maybe in high school or just after high school.
Is
And
it that old? It's not that old,
it
is it?
has to be, because I know where I was living when I read it. I know she's
Okay.
making faces over here. I know it seems crazy. Because I was still in my old neighborhood at the time, and
Okay.
I know why I picked up. Well, let me clarify. The actual book that I read is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern, but I wanted to start by
Yeah.
talking about The Night Circus, because The Night Circus was
Okay.
a book before this, I think. And
So Starless Sea is the one that I started, and
oh,
then Libby took it back.
okay,
So I'm like halfway through.
gotcha.
Okay.
Um,
I'm excited.
I remember
Sorry.
picking up The Night Circus way back when, and the description was cool. It was like two kids, they were getting trained up by magicians, and they had to do like a duel or whatever. And then I read the book, and it was like, oh, this description does not do this book justice, and it's really weird that this is the description at all. And I remember not being alone in that. I had neighbors and other friends who read it, and they were like, yeah, the book's description is weird. Like, I don't know why it doesn't match the actual contents of the book. Loved that
It's
book.
from 2012, by the way.
Yeah, and guess what? 2012 is like a year and a half or
10
so
years
after
ago!
I got out of high school. So that sounds right. So I now The Starless Sea is out by Erin Morgenstern. I think it's been out for 2 or 3 years now. And had I
Yep.
realized who it was, because I forgot the author of The Night Circus, I would have picked this book up so much sooner. This book is so good. It is dripping in like curiosity, mystery, just dreaminess. It's so good. And it reads like an adult long form like bedtime story or novel. I was like, oh man, I should be in bed with blankets right now. Quick synopsis: Zachary is the son of a fortune teller. He is a bit of a nerd. He's into video games and pop culture, a little bit of a loner, though not unpopular. He goes to university. The book starts during winter break, I believe. He is in the library and he finds a book with just a name, like a title, but no actual author. It's an old book, and no one in the library knows where it came from, and they can't find it in the library's system. He reads it, and later, he reads it later. It's full of random stories, and we'll get to hear these stories throughout the book. And then he gets to a certain part of the book, and it's literally all about him. He is specifically a character in one section, and it perfectly describes things that happened to him in the past, including events that no one else could know because he was alone when those things happened. Nothing bad. It was just like, oh, I was alone when that happened. Like, how could anyone possibly know this? And it freaks him out, very rightfully so. So for reasons we find out in the book, he heads to New York City to solve the mystery of his existence in this book and what the Starless Sea is. He keeps seeing the phrase, the Starless Sea. We fall into mysterious recurring symbols, a mysterious club/society. We meet people who have very interesting and abundant knowledge on certain things. And there are lots of breaks in the book where we get to fully read some of the stories that are in this mysterious book that he has, that tie into events later in the novel in different ways. The book makes obvious reference to certain things. You clearly get Alice in Wonderland vibes from certain aspects of this book. There are certain video game, like Zelda references and stuff like that. And this isn't like a pop culture, look at all these references book. It's just like little things here and there that I appreciated as a fellow nerd. Like the main character is a Ravenclaw, and his friend is making him a Ravenclaw scarf, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which you and I are, both Ravenclaws, so I appreciated that. Yeah, so I fully related with this character in every way. I don't know how, like, this is one of those books where things get weird. Like, if you picture Alice in Wonderland, the book, the movie, whatever, it's one of those, she falls down the rabbit hole, enters a weird world. Things happen that are impossible or weird, or, there's a talking, spoken caterpillar, stuff like that. This book kind of does that, where weird things happen the further you get into it. I wouldn't say anywhere near on the level of Alice in Wonderland, but there's clear inspiration from that. Yeah, it just gets a little bit weird. There are certain things by the end, I will say, having read the book now, there are some things where I'm still questioning some things that happened where I'm like, sure, let's roll with it. Because it's one of those books where not everything has to make sense and you're going to be left with questions. But I loved, every few chapters, the book would pause and we'd hear a story from the book. And then we'd get back to our main story. And I don't know, it was just so
What
good.
did you give it? What was your rating?
5 stars. Yeah. 10 out
Okay.
of 5.
So I was listening to it, and I was probably three-quarters of the way through, and I just didn't realize it was due, and they took it back. But yeah, I was definitely feeling 4 or 5 stars. So eventually, I think I have it on hold. So when I get it back, I plan to finish it. But yeah, all those same vibes, very magical, very beautiful, and just fun and different, and there was enough realism combined with it that it wasn't like, I guess it is unreal, but it feels grounded.
Yeah, if there's anybody out there who needs stories like this to make perfect sense, like, I say all the time, well, they didn't explain the lore enough, the magic enough, blah, blah, blah. This is one of those books where it's okay, and I have no problem with that, and it's just so well written. After I reviewed it myself, I went online just to see, like, the general consensus, and there are those out there that complains, like, well, this doesn't make sense, or, I read The Night Circus, which is so great, but this book is so dumb, and blah, 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 and I'm like, well, then you're not reading this for what it's supposed to be, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So, take that how you will. If you're not a fan of books like Alice in Wonderland, this novel may not be for you. I hate making that comparison because this book is not Alice in Wonderland. It's extremely different, but the illusions are there. The connections can be made in certain ways. So it's just the best comparison I can think of on the spot.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good comparison. It's not written like Alice in Wonderland, right. Like you said, like symbology and things like that you don't understand until you're getting through it.
Well, and I will say, if you're going to divide this book into 3 parts, actually, I think this book is divided into like 6 or 7 parts, but if you're going to divide it into like 3 sections, the back third of the book does get very weird, and that's where most of my questions were like, am I just losing it? Like, I don't know. I don't understand. I don't want to spoil anything, but things do get weird in the back of the book, and I'm just like, okay, this is just taking a real different turn, but I'm here for this weirdness.
Well, I'm glad you liked it, and it makes me want to go check on my Libby and see.
Yeah, definitely. I'd be
where
curious. We need your side quest on it.
Yeah.
All right. So does that leave 1 for you?
Yeah, and I really wanted to like it. So it's called Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. And I read a lot of like thriller, mystery type of things. I'm going to read the synopsis from Amazon because I don't want to spoil anything. So, okay. No visitors, no nights spent away from the apartment, no disturbing the other residents, all of whom are rich or famous or both. These are the rules for Jules Larson's new job as an apartment sitter at the Bartholomew, one of Manhattan's most high-profile and mysterious buildings. Recently heartbroken and just plain broke, Jules is taken in by the splendor of her surroundings and accepts the terms, ready to leave her past life behind. As she gets to know the residents and the staff of the Bartholomew, Jules finds herself drawn to the fellow apartment sitter Ingrid, who comfortingly reminds her of the sister she lost 8 years ago. When Ingrid confides that the Bartholomew is not what it seems and the dark history beneath its gleaming facade is starting to frighten her, Jules brushes it off as a harmless ghost story, until the next day when Ingrid disappears. Searching for the truth about Ingrid's disappearance, Jules digs deeper into the Bartholomew's sordid past and into the secrets kept within its walls. What she discovers pits Jules against the clock as she races to unmask a killer, expose the building's hidden past, and escape the Bartholomew before her temporary status becomes permanent. So basically, Jules is going to get paid a lot of money to sleep in this apartment every night. And people have died there. Think like old Hollywood, huge, like Gothic building with, she has what's it called? Creepy gargoyle. She has a gargoyle outside of her bedroom window. She names him George, but he's like creepy looking. And yeah, people disappear. People, apartment sitters disappear. And she starts trying to figure out what's going on. And
It's a great premise. I love it.
it is. And the thing is, a lot of people have been talking about this book. Riley Sager is, he's a man, which I didn't know. But he's written quite a few books that are similar kind of thrillers and talked about a lot. I was excited to read it, and I just didn't love it. I wanted to love it, and there were definitely moments where, like, because I was listening to it, that I had to, like, pause it because I was like, oh no, something's gonna happen. You get nervous, and I'm a big baby, so. But I just didn't. So I gave it a 2 out of 5. I just didn't love it. There were moments of suspense, and it was interesting. I just didn't really feel connected to the main character, and what I was thinking was, because you have all these cool personalities, it would have been interesting, because they're all rich, famous people, you know, if we got a multiple perspective, because someone is committing murder. And so I just think it would have been interesting. We get a dual timeline. So when we first start it, she's in the hospital after getting hit by a car from running out of the Bartholomew. So you know something happened, but you don't know what. And you're going back 7 days to, you know, when she starts at the apartment. I think she only lived there for like less than a week.
Okay.
So it all happens very, very quickly. And yeah, I don't know. I think there was a more interesting way to tell the story, maybe, for me. It just wasn't like it just wasn't what I wanted it to be.
Yeah, it just didn't speak to you. Yep.
Well, and I had thought, because I do read a lot of these books, I had thought I read some other Riley Sagers. And so I looked in my Goodreads, and I have not. So I'm wondering who I'm confusing this person with.
Oh, okay.
Because I think, so he wrote a book called Final Girls, and I was confusing it with the Final Girls Support Group by Grady Hendrix, which I did read and love. Grady Hendrix also wrote that one that was a Southerner's Guide to Slaying Vampires.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I don't know if I just confused the two authors and was like, oh, this is going to be great, and had really high expectations. It was still interesting. I would still say read it. It was really the, like, last 50 pages where I was like, meh. I wanted more. Like, the reveal and the things, I was like, all right, sure. So I don't know if it's because I read so many and I expected, like, a big twist or something crazy, or I don't know. I thought there was going to be some, like, the whole time I thought there was going to be some sort of supernatural situation, like the gargoyle is going to come alive and that's who's been killing everyone.
And that's exactly what I would expect. After you told me that, I assumed there was going to be something wrong with the statue, but I guess not.
Well, and she talks about seeing faces in the wallpaper, and like page 1, she talks about that. And there's all these creaks and people have died. Servants have died there. So, yeah. I wanted more. I didn't get it. I want to read another Riley Sager to see if he and I jive. But I don't know. It didn't do it for me. I wanted it to, but it didn't.
Yeah, it's like with me and TV shows and movies, you know, I try to keep up with so many of them that they just start, you know, you get used to things. And then, like, it takes a lot to tell a story that you haven't seen or heard before. You know, you start getting desensitized to all the different twists and turns. It's like, okay, well, I've read this one before. I've read the better version of this with this author before. It can start to blend together, which is a problem as we read more and as we get older, which can make it hard.
Honestly, if they had told me that it was the gargoyles doing it, I would have probably liked, like, the whole story the same, but that it was these statues. Like, I think I would have been totally in. Like, I liked a lot of it. I just didn't like the end. So,
unfortunate. Yeah. Oh, well, and what did you rate it? I'm sorry, did you say?
2 out of 5.
2 out of 5, okay.
But I do want to read more, like I said, by him. And I have a lot of books I'm really excited about. I have a whole bunch of like fall type, spooky season books that I'm trying to read.
Mm-hmm.
So after I finish our next main quest book, I think next side quest episode, I might have a lot to talk about. We'll see.
I'm doing a series. It's a kid series. I won't say what it is yet. But I'm afraid that that's all I'm gonna read for the next episodes. I might just have one thing to talk about, and it's probably gonna be like a 5 or 6 book series. So, or maybe I'll blow right through it. We'll see. Because I have to fit in the your book swap book, whose name switched. Yes. So we'll see how much I get done for the next side quests. Because I've never done I've done series for the show, but never all at once.
I'm excited. I'm excited to read Fablehaven, which was your favorite pick, and
I hope it lives up. It's been so long.
Well, and a lot of the other books that we have planned, I'm really excited about. So, yeah, I'm just like speechless. I'm so excited. We have so many good books.
I'm excited for one book in particular. I won't say anything yet, just in case anything were to change. But there's one book I'm very excited for. I hope it's what I'm expecting. But we'll see how it goes.
Let me guess. It is definitely 100% the Christmas romance novel that I picked.
That'll be fun too. I forgot about that. But I'm thinking more the next. I'm thinking more the fall season that we have going on.
Yeah, I know. I had a feeling, but yeah, it's a lot of fun coming up. So definitely, make sure you are following our schedule on Facebook, because we would love to have people, offer suggestions, but also read along with us so that you can enjoy these books with us, because it's going to be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm, I agree. Yep. All the links for everything are in the show notes on whatever you're listening to, YouTube, podcast apps, etc. But I think that is it. So until next time, we will see you soon.
Bye.